Hello, world. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reva Darcy here. It is Saturday Night Live. It looks like we could have a program in progress. Uh, and tonight at Frida's Place on our show, we have one of the things that I started with very, very early on. Uh, we have a Kodahan maple forest. It is very overgrown, so it's really you could be forgiven if you have a hard time telling what this is, you could be forgiven. Yeah, what this is 19 seedlings that were exactly the same size, exactly the same run of little maple trees, and they were mail order. And I ordered 20 and set one off to the side, and I made every mistake you could possibly make. I heard going in that forests were something easy for beginners to do, and so I decided I wanted to try my hand at it, and then trying to decide what kind of material to get. I saw some really nice looking um, maple for it that other people had done. And then just following down that path, I later found out that Kodahan maples make tiny little leaves, and they do. They make tiny little to scale leaves. It's pretty. They're pretty. They're a pretty color, and they're pretty convincing as far as their size and their scale. What I haven't seen yet after 3 years is a lot of ramification. They look like the leaves tend to stay really, really, really close to the trunk, and I'm not getting the branches don't seem to survive winter to winter. There's not, it's just like they start back from nubs, and so 3 years later, I don't I don't have hardly any ramification. I just have uh, little places that were bud sites last year, and new places that are about to be bud sites this year. But one of the other things that I did wrong with these, and we're just kind of talking about. I'm kind of going about this way for kind of a lead in. Um, Forests are easy. Uh, Whenever you get into bonsai, you do. People will tell you that a forest is not a hard. It's not a hard, incredibly hard way to go, and that is very true. However, you can also make some fairly complex forests, and they are also an area where some complex work will uh, will pay off. People will sometimes go in with a few basic rules about forests. They'll say, don't plant even numbers. I understand that to be a throwback of floral decorating. You think about it, floral decorating, your flower arrangement, it's going to have one apex thing, and then it's going to have an even number of things to this side of it, an even number of things to this side of it. And so those two even numbers plus the apex in the middle gives you an odd number. So that's kind of where that comes from. I also hear people that are have been doing bonsai for years and years and years say that somewhere beyond seven, you don't you won't immediately be able to detect whether or not it's even or odd. So so your perception of one being right over the other wouldn't even come into play without you having to physically stop and use your finger and count them. And if you're having to do that, then it's not really based on aesthetics. It's based on some, you know. So I've heard that question quite a bit. This is 19 Kodaheim maples. How we got 19 Kodaheim maples out of this is weird because start with, uh, we planted 19 and lost two and took the one that we had left over, threw that in. So that should have put us back to 18. Because remember, I said we lost two, and we're at 19 trees. So what that means is one of these smaller trees that at the time looked like it was a twin trunk or kind of like a twin trunk. One of these smaller trees in here got counted as got counted as one by me and the person who sold them, when in fact it was a tree and a tiny little tree stuck to it, or it came up via the root or something. But we got an extra tree that I didn't buy out of this, and it's the same species as the rest of them. I don't know how well it reads. This guy right there is extra. Also, I'm behind the hill over here where you can't see me pulling weeds. That's not very. So what this is 19 Kodaheim maple trees, and we have quite a bit of weeding to do tonight. What do I have as toys on hand? Well, I have my usual bungee skewers. Those are going to be. I'm also going to remove the moss in here, so it's not like I'm going to be going around all of this. I'm just going to start raking it out for reels. And I have some other tools. I have some real scissors in case I need to do moss cutting. I have my stainless scissors that I don't mind getting in the dirt. I have I should probably get those closer. More tweezers. Going to put those behind here in case I need to reach in between the roots. I have my stainless steel chopstick. I don't like to use steel as root rakes. One of the first tools I bought was this thing, and I use this end sometimes to clear off the pot. But you've also seen me use my sickle to do that. So I never use this to clear away stuff. Although I am raking out some moss tonight, so I might use this to grab the moss out. But I never use a metal root rake. Uh, yeah. So I've got that. I rarely use that. And the other tools I have standing by are the same tools that I had last night, or here on my coffee table. I decided not to put them up because they are kind of what I consider the usual suspects. Oh, and I have my hemp broom. That will probably be handy. We have some dog treats for our attack wiener dog here, Frida. And let's get started. Um, I will start with this root rake and see if it will help me to reach back in there. And the only reason I'm using it is because I'm not using it as a root rake. Also, I'm going through and the weeds had gotten so bad on this guy that the bio gold on here can stay well and truly hid. I know I had another stash of oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. Let me do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Move in a little bit. Something else. I've got my bonsai table is currently on. I've got a garbage can, a small waste paper basket, like an office size waste paper basket, right here around my calf. So at some point, when you see me raking stuff off on the floor, and it really looks like a cringe-worthy moment, not quite as bad as it looks. That's yeah, could be a big waste of Akadama now. These trees to are just starting to bud out. They're actually kind of taking up the rear, as it were. Now, I made so many mistakes when I did this. Um, I ordered, well, I think, as I said, 20 trees, and what I got was 20 cubes, um, just little square cubes, all just alike in a tray. Really, really, really healthy trees. And yeah, they had powdery mildew, but that's because they came from, I think, like St. Louis or something. I might not be. Yeah, I believe they came from St. Louis. They were an Etsy purchase. Go to Etsy, pulled up Kodahan maple, found them, bred them. Yeah, saw that the person was a bonsai enthusiast. Read their reviews. Push go for 20 of them, and there was just enough powdery mildew in the box that I'm like, I'd seen that before. It it caught powdery mildew probably on the way over here. Cardboard can transmit powdery mildew. And if something is traveling across state, if it didn't have powdery mildew when it left, it can get it on the way over here. Um, so other than that, and the trees were very, very healthy and very vigorous and looked really nice. So and they were planted in cinder. It looked like red crushed brick. Um, pretty, pretty substrate. I thought it was really attractive. But you know, also I had done enough reading to know that it was the wrong time of year to go transplanting maples. But I went, come on, they're kids. They can stay out and party with the big. And also I went, we won't reduce the roots. But what was I going to do about the fact that they were all just like perfect cubes, and I was going to try to make 19 trees not look like they were perfect cubes. That would prove tricky. So I got all of them out of their cups, and I would take like 4 or 5 or 6 of them at a time and just kind of mangle them together, not losing the substrate, not pouring it all out, but just kind of making an amoeba shape out of what wanted to be 2 rows of three. And then I just started placing those. And somebody at the time asked me if I made my own muck or what kind of muck they were using. And I remember having no idea what they were talking about. I remember going, are they being weird? I have no, I was kind of, I suspect this means something. I mean, that's kind of, you know, I suspect they're not being weird, but that sounds weird if you don't know what the hell somebody's talking about. So, yeah, that's how new I was to it. And I had seen videos where people had done diagrams and drawings and templates, and they had taken trees that were in some cases 2 or 3 years apart, so that they could vary in size and in height, which is way more natural looking than 19 seedlings from Etsy. So I went, yeah, that's true. I don't care. In a couple of years, they'll fight it out, and we'll see. They will or they won't, and we'll see how that works out. That was true. They within reason, they all look to be about the same size, but they're also starting to take on their own, and they've been heavily pruned, and in some cases, uh, we just like last year actually got this to be our top tree. Before then, other trees kept coming in more dominant by the pruning season, and there was never like the right place to cut that back right. So we just in the last year got our apex tree right here the way we wanted it, and it'll be interesting to see how this guy comes out. Oh, but we let it get so weedy and nasty. It is. It just looks so. I'm just back here. I'm back here behind the hill, pulling weeds, and maybe that'll add to the. Hello, Paul. Hello, hello, Inform. Hello, Titan. We got the usual suspects are in the house tonight. It's good to see. It's good to see everybody. So yeah, I am weeding this Kodaheim maple, and well, every once in a while, maybe I'll do a rotate so that you'll see what I was doing behind the hill. Hello, Lee. All right. Oh my goodness. So that's that side. Now I'm looking at the gross side that y'all were looking at for a long time. Oh my goodness. Ooh. This forest has been under lights under lights mostly for about 2 years. It's on the top shelf of my plant rack, and it lives in front of the patio door, and it gets the most direct sun when the sun is low in the sky and tracking low in the sky, like late in the year. So the meat of its lighting comes from our artificial lights, and I don't think they're sun starved. I think they like the amount of light they get. So they're also, let's see, probably a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet below a 740-watt full spectrum LED, and that's not an equivalent wattage. That's a true 740 watt. So I don't know, playing the rules of how they do them with the little LED light bulbs, and it says, this is equivalent to that. That would probably be equivalent to a 4 or 5K, and that's the spread it has. Um, the spread is like 4 feet by 5 feet across by one way by one way, and it's at most intense at about a foot or two, and then tapers off from there. But I can tell by the growth on my cypress trees that they're good from top to bottom. In other words, the tops of the trees are right in the light, and down low, they don't, they're not doing anything weird. They're not reaching or stretching or doing anything. Um, everything seems to be getting ample amount of light. I'm still trying to pull all these weed clusters out of here by the roots. E. sometimes, I see this thing, I let it get so nasty with just weeds, and I'm looking at it going, golly. And it's a nice looking arrangement. It's like they say, if you're starting to fall out of in love with one of your trees, that probably means you need to go in there and do some cleaning. Well, when it I have, like, even on some of them, there are times when you're going to go in and clean, and sometimes you know that you are waiting for one of those times, and that still doesn't mean that in between time you're not kind of like, oh, nee, hurry up and get here. Yeah, but it'll be good. This guy is just some of these trees are just now starting to bud out a little bit, and not really very much, but I'm just starting to see a uh, a few little red buds in there. What I don't want to do is really rake the roots. I want to rake off the weeds, and right now the moss. I'm just going to take off the moss and it because it has so many weeds in it that we'll get it back here pretty quick. Oh yeah, I have been weeding, so the amount of rain that we get, everything is just like, yeah, weeds. We're into them. So when I planted these maples, I just took their little clumps and I mashed this whole little mound together of this cinder substrate and baby maple tree roots. I just kind of pushed them and mashed them all together to where it didn't look like an orchard, and and then laid them down on a bed of akadama and sewed them down with some wire once I had already placed them, and they were kind of mounded up like you see them now. So that's kind of all I knew to do, and I felt pretty good about the way that all went down. And it actually, I would say it worked out pretty well. We could have done a whole lot better. We could have gone to a whole lot more trouble, but it was a way to get started. The materials that I put into the game, I was way into overpot and stuff. This is a Japanese tokonoma pot, and yeah, it's a worthy of a nice forest, or worthy of maybe a really nice maple kind of uh, kind of pot. So yeah, this really needs. But here's the thing: when I made those mounds and I did all of that, within a little while, two things happened. A lot of the soil, because I didn't know anything about muck, a lot of the soil washed away from the base of these trees. Remember, I was kind of mounding all of this up to look like kind of a maple forest on a hill kind of a thing. And as that mushed together mess began to wash away some of the soil, some of the natural substrate, while at the same time the roots were going straight down into that bed of akadama that I had put down below them. We ended up with a whole lot of exposed roots on these guys, and I have to be careful around them because a lot of these trees. Once I get all this moss out of here, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to my skewers. So we ended up with some pretty cool exposed roots out of that. A lot of these a lot of these trees are going to end up when they fatten up and those roots fatten up, they're going to have some nicely fanned out bases that I think are going to make for a nice feature. So I'm kind of thinking that's that's pretty cool. And I hope to be able to show you how well that part of this. See, by the time it gets all weedy and everything, uh, we lose some of what we had going for us in the looks department, and also some of the best features of this whole little forest then go hidden. It's and that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. Whenever you're starting to feel a little ho hum about one of your trees, that's probably a good indication that you need to go in there. I need to go in there and do something. If ever a person is. This person was feeling a little ho hum about this, but I've been through that. I've been through that with this arrangement before, and forced or easy, and they are fun, but also there are people who didn't do such a half-hearted approach or such a rookie approach. And the great thing about forest is they're very forgiving. Almost any forest plus a little time and the right care, and you can have a great forest. You could find somebody's failed attempt at a nearly dead forest on the sidewalk, take it home, and in a little while, maybe you're the one who could have a great forest out of that. Uh, but at the same time, there are people who have made. John Naka made one fantastic forest, and he used some probably maybe 5, 6 year old pre bonsai material and just made something that you still see in all the books today. And it was copied both several times by him and by many others. Um, but that would have been he and his apprentice showing up with a large with a large pot and several trees and prepping them in front of people, and then laying out everything perfectly and then going through and planting those trees, and at several hours later a what would be a pretty famous little forest was born. But that was with exceptional trees, and that was with a true bonsai master. Oh yeah, I was watching last night's video, the video we in the video, and I went, "Oh my goodness!" And I looked down and I went, "They don't really look as bad here as they do there." But that, yeah, sorry, my hands were all tore up. Oh, repotting tropicals. That sounds. I don't have a lot of tropicals. When it comes to repotting tropicals, that would probably be my wisterias. I had a bunch of bougainvilleas. I gave those away. I gave away a few bougainvilleas last year and a couple of wisterias. I made room. Excuse me. There is so much pollen about And I have I'm actually closed up in here right now with a oh yeah, I'm just going to town on this a lot faster. I'm closed up in the apartment right now with the blooming wisteria. The purple one is is on my tree stand. I think it'll be fine there for a minute. So yeah, once again, I tried to go and see if I and see if my claw would help me out here. But I find that what I really like to do, what I can work with more confident, what I think I do less damage with, is my good old weenie skewer. Can rake this moss. I'm holding it lightly, and I can break this moss right off the trunk, and I don't think I'm tearing up any roots or anything, or scoring up the trees. And I'm able to move a lot faster than I was with my with my claw, the claw. Okay. Yeah, pretty much just you know what? Somebody's that's absolutely true about killing moss with fertilizer pellets. If you it's kind of weird. Um I get I think that those fertilizer pellets versus my bio gold facilitate moss growth. And at the same time, it gets really, really, really thick. And part of the reason it gets really, really thick is because of the ball gold. And at the same time, the one place where it doesn't look good is directly underneath it. And that's like because it's too it in it exists in too high of a concentration. Not that necessarily like that one pellet was in too high of a concentration, but that's what it's melting into, and that concentration gets high. Um, and also that doesn't tell us what the roots are doing. That might be loving it, but yeah, I've seen that too. You can see that whenever I show my coastal oak. Whenever I show my coastal oak, that moss is like you can like punch it and it's spongy like a mushroom. But underneath underneath those underneath those cubes, it's a different color and it's not healthy right underneath. It's black looking right underneath. All around it, just the opposite though. It takes off again. Like it likes it around, it's just too strong and where it's and I could fix that in a way. I could fix that by just moving them around a little. But a lot of times I noticed that those guys are moving around on their own and they end up on the floor of the balcony. So I'm trying to get them to settle down somewhere where they'll settle in long enough to break down without rolling off. Like for instance on my cypress trees. They'll roll off they'll roll off those cypress trees really easy. And so if it's got a little place where it can rest in the nestled in the soil somewhere, I'll hang with that and put, four or five of them there in a row. Not maybe at the same time, or maybe when they break down, I'll replace them because that was a good spot for. I know I could set them there, and they would break down there without rolling off. So on my end, that's what I'm doing to make that happen. I would say, and I don't guess I'm watching it happen, but I'm not really that worried about it as a consequence. if I were trying to show the tree with that moss, that would be one thing. But here's the other. I know that the moss is a lot healthier, and I know that my mycorrhiza has. I'm seeing so much more mycorrhiza since I started feeding, organic feeding. It just it just facilitates all of that microbial stuff. There's so much to clean up. Is there anything we need skiers want to? At some point, let's see. Is this you doing that way? Now I can do this where I'm kind of facing the show a little bit. How's that? So yeah, the things I did wrong in doing my little Codaheim forest. A bunch of trees that were all exactly the same size. In the end, it's not that big a deal. The trees have a way of sorting that out and making their own hierarchy. But that's kind of the difference between something that looks convincing and impressive at the end of the night versus something that, you build it and sit back and wait on it. That's kind of bonsai is a lot of times we build something and sit back and wait on it. But there's another way, and you can go in with some choice materials and do some choice work and have something that will look beautiful on night one. You know, Steve, Steve at Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Now he is doing some pretty fantastic forests right now. Um, and he tends to incorporate those with some pretty neat DIY projects. I'm not going to call them DIY projects. They're really cool. He'll do things like Central Park, where there's a little brick sidewalk through there with park benches and stuff, and and then and then the trees will be what you would expect to see, where you would expect to see, in the scale that you would expect to see them, and the bricks are in the scale, and he really all out some pretty impressive stuff. I would uh, I would say that is the other. Extreme is a hard word, but I was completely pretty. I don't think I'm supposed to say half-assed, but that's kind of how I was about going in to a. But I was kind of wanting to be like that too. I was kind of wanting to go, look how easy, ta-da, you know, and really it was kind of easy on a ignorance is bliss sort of thing. Shouldn't be that easy if you know what you're doing. You could put a little bit more. Could definitely put a little bit more craft into it. Is kind of what I'm saying. There was definitely a lot of room to put more craft into this. I think this moss is was looking really good, but it was also leaving everything kind of overly wet. I watered this earlier today, and everything just still looks so wet and like it's been wet for a minute. Well, it's been winter, but still. It's good to let all of this stuff, and it's good to see all of these trunks and bases. So back back to my theme. Whenever you get tired of a tree, a lot of times whenever I get tired of a tree, that means that I need to spend I need to spend more time with that tree. And then like like relighting the old candle, so to speak. I remember what it was I loved about this. And sometimes I'll speak about this forest like it's one tree because I I count it whenever I do tree counts. I tend to count this as one tree because I water it like it's one tree. I feed it like it's one tree, and so I don't think that's in that way. I don't think that's inaccurate. On the other way, uh, when I tell people how many of different trees I have, I'll tell people I have uh, 20 maples, and that's 19 Codahimes and one trident. So that's the different ways of looking. But still, this gets treated, this gets potted, this gets weeded, this gets fed, this gets its insecticide or whatever treatment as if it were as if it were one tree. So that's kind of how I that's still kind of how I approach that. And yeah, I can see I've still got a green light on the my sound okay? Are we too loud? Are we too be tempted if yeah, a big foot would be. I was watching in the last couple of days I've watched two bonsai masters do a thing about judging trees. And Ryan Neal was at the Portland Club looking at the club's trees and teaching everybody who was watching the video, what to look for when you judge trees. Or and this would help you when you're picking out a tree that to purchase or something, what you should be looking at instead of looking at it and going, wow, gosh. Sometimes we get floored by stuff. And is how much? I have that much, kind of an attitude when uh, sometimes we can slow down and be more objective and look and go, the taper here is this. What is the, what is the strong point of this tree? What is the weak point of this tree? What will I be able what would I do about the weak point? If I were going to take this tree and I see what its weak point is, if it has one, would I want to take on what I think would be, you know, so that's more of an objective stance. Also, if you were to look at trees in a club setting and then say, well, um, the other person, I was listening to two different people. The other person was Jonas Dupuch, who did a lecture, and this video just came out last night. Oh man, one of the California bonsai clubs. It just went right out of my head. But he was the guest lecturer there, and the topic was Sacramento, the Sacramento Bonsai Society. Uh, had Jonas Dupois as the speaker, and he was doing his lecture on how to judge bonsai. And he goes, when we buy a tree, do you know as much about bonsai as the person who who is selling the tree? You know, uh, do you know what to look for? When it comes to seeing other people's stuff, do you know what it is you like about it and what it is you don't like about it, and what it is that if if how you would make improvements if it were, and it's just kind of an ongoing thing like that. But he was saying in a room, uh, the same way that they judge dogs at a dog show. Uh, is this the best example of a schnauzer? Is it a better example of a schnauzer than this is an example of a basset? You can't compare a schnauzer and a basset, but on a schnauzer scale, is this a 1 or a 10? And on a basset scale, is this a 1 or a 10? And that's how you judge a room full of trees when one of them is one of them is this and one of them is that, one of them is a pine, one of them is alcova, one of them is a juniper. So yeah, I found that all pretty fascinating. You might want to the thing to look for would have been the Sacramento Bonsai Club Jonas tree review. I think is probably close to what that was called. Can you kind of see? It looks like we've ravaged the hill there, but hopefully you can see also that we're starting to see light in between the bases of these trees. They have some fantastic. The end result of Patricia not knowing what she's doing is whenever I mounded all of that cinder with those trees in it and then proceeded to water it, it did have that layer of akadama in the bottom. And so the roots had a good place to go. But in the meantime, uh, all of this stuff to lose, began to lose the soil. It began to lose that substrate around it, a little with every watering. And so that had the effect of really giving these trees a pretty funky base. And I I, uh, I kind of like it, and I see a future in it. I don't know that I would sell it as a practice because as I think it started off as typical uh, beginner's luck forest shenanigans. Didn't know what muck was, for goodness sakes. But yeah, all right. I'm not scared. We're gonna go right in here and go right at this stuff right here. That's gonna be a big payoff though when I get all this cleared out. Worth the price of admission. Just the right time to do this because if it started leafing out and I were trying to do this, I would be tearing this. I would be tearing up, little buds and stuff. Oop, there's some more bio gold. The weeds are so high I can't see the bio gold. They The weeds really like the bio gold. Yeah, yeah, just a whole bunch of this would be the Bob Ross. This would be the Bob Ross forest right here. This is just happy, one big happy accident. So yeah, yeah. If I okay, I'm just making sure at the right end. If I get all of this grass out without messing this up too bad right in here, and I don't mean to sound negative because I'm not going to do that. We're not going to mess that up. But when I get all of these weeds out of here, this tree, for instance, is going to be. You'll see what I mean, all up close and personal. And I haven't seen this tree in a minute, but it always, because of all of the overgrowth, pretty overgrown. Hmm. Okay. So I kind of see a system in a way. I rake the top until I expose the root base of a clump of weeds, and then I pull those guys up. Also had scissors in case I wanted to go through and start cutting the top of this off. Oh wow. These roots have been really busy since last I saw them. A lot more. There's a lot more stuff. There's a lot more stuff to look at. Let me see if I can get this cleared out a little better. Another one of those roots. It's like pulling a molar. Yeah, this needed. I've been kind of going through and just raking off the top of the stuff for quite a while. I needed to go. I needed to go in here and kind of do what we're doing now. More of a go down and rake all the top dressing back and pull up everything. So, but we're getting it now. There's so much of it. Also, these little weenie skewers are doing a fantastic job. Okay, here is a good spot for a little show and tell. No, I'm gonna. We have more substrate, but I'm getting all those weeds and seeds out of there. You can see all of this, right? That's just like exposed roots, and as they get fatter, I mean, I already love that. I already love that. And there's a bunch of them like that. Can you see that? How that looks? That was because I didn't know what I was doing. That was that high at the time, and as all of that stuff washed away, all of that stuff went south, and all of that stuff went south and went down into that akadama. And I have these features now on most of these trees. And that's what's going to be a unique feature about these. I just saw a question. How did Frida Reba Darcy, how did she get her name? I got, where'd she go? She's on another couch. The house is full of couches, and she just retired to another couch. She I got Frida at the Oakland Animal Rescue. Uh, I had two dogs when I came back to Oakland. I had left with Oakland from Oakland 3 years before. I left with two dogs that I had for a number of years, and I returned with those two dogs in tow. And we came back and we got an apartment here. And those two dogs and I had lived in these apartments like 14 or 15 years ago. When I first moved to California, I was looking to buy a home here. And while I was looking, I moved into this apartment with my two dogs. And all those years later, I became a homeowner, had that home for a lot of years, and so much had happened and so many things had changed. And then I went to New Orleans for a minute to check out the Airbnb business and see what that was like. And then I came back with my dogs and got an apartment here because I remembered that I had decided I had a change of attitude. I had decided that an apartment, after all, was going to be just all I needed, all I wanted. Somebody else's, something breaks, it's on them. It's painting, it's on them. I just saw the beauty in that. I didn't see me as part of as, as part of a married couple or anything. Was really kind of liking my independence, and there was a few things that my independence came with that weren't so easy. That was doing all the house maintenance yourself, and for the first time ever, I'm kind of like, yeah, I might be done with home ownership. I don't know if I want to continue. So I cashed out and I moved up here into this apartment with the same dogs that I had lived here with 14 years before. And they were pretty old and pretty salty by that time. They had lived in, they were both hurricane dogs from Louisiana. They were both hurricane rescues. And one of them was from Hurricane Rita, and the other was from Hurricane Katrina. And they were genetically pretty far apart. One was a looked like a chow shepherd, and the other looked like a pit bull chihuahua. I kid you not. It was a pit bull looking chihuahua sized dog that weighed about 40 pounds. Chihuahua sized dog weighed about 40, all muscle. She was like a little sandbag, little wet sandbag. Um, but I had those dogs for all those years, and when one of them passed, the other one passed a few months later. So I'm moped. I knew that I was. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't playing that. I'll never get another dog again. I had had dogs most of my life, and I was trying to decide what the appropriate amount of time was or something. And I was kind of like, I'm really tired of coming home to not having anybody to pal around with. So I was working for Lyft at the time, and before I started work, one night I pulled out the app for Oakland Animal Dog Shelter, and I pulled up a picture of Frida, and her name was Reba. The ladies at the dog shelter had decided that with her red hair that she looked like a Reba, as in like Reba McEntire. A number of years ago, I worked on a Reba McEntire movie. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Is there life out there? Is there anybody out there? I don't remember. I don't remember. Yeah, I worked in, I think, Nashville for a few months, and it might have been a made-for-TV movie or an HBO movie or something. It wasn't like a cinematic release, uh, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But I was looking at her and I'm going, yeah. not seeing I'm not seeing the Reba, you know. So, but at the time, I went and got her. I went and got her, and I wasn't thinking about the Reba part at the time. But when I went and got her, they told me that her name was Reba, and this little lady came out holding her, and she handed her to me, and the dog looked nervous to see me. It had not known too many people in a while. Apparently, Frida had been a single mom. So, yeah. Um, so this old lady, when she handed her over to me, she was teary eyed. I looked at her and I said, "This dog has won the lottery, right? She is. She has done well. My dogs. I would like to be one of my dogs. I think that would be a nice thing to do. Would be to come back. If I could come back as one of my dogs, I would know. I would know I had it pretty good." Um, I said, if you don't want her, she will be very, very well taken care of. She goes, I work here. I can't have every dog I fall in love with. And she was, crying at the thought of losing her little Reba. So Reba and I, Reba and I left the place, and I went to work with Reba. Are you still over? No, you're over there now. Yeah, I keep talking to her like she's behind me. She's already bailed on me. I went to work. I was still driving for Lyft. I drove straight to San Francisco, and she sat over there in the passenger seat for a little while. And at about half the day in, she remembered that she was sort of a lap dog and that I was a lap, and kind of made her way over. And she stayed there for 8 months. Basically, we just got up every day and did our. We got great tips. Everybody in San Francisco loved her. She got all kind of great reviews, um, and it was a good gig all the way around. I was worried about how many miles we were racking up on the car, and also I was doing that to make sure that we didn't end up on the wrong side of a bill we couldn't handle after COVID. Uh, like, yeah. So after a while, I sold that car and got a job at the hardware store. And it was kind of possible because I learned that after 4 or 5 or 6 hours in a car, I probably need to take a bathroom break. Not her. That was never, she never had that issue. So I found out I could actually get a part time job and she would be fine here. Would prefer it, in fact. But our first night out, we're zipping along the streets of San Francisco, and there is a Frida Kahlo uh, drive on the from where I am now on the backside. Can I just uncover my mind? Something weird. On the backside of San Francisco, from where I am now, there is a Frida Kahlo drive. So that's when it occurred to me that instead of Reba, she could be Frida. And then I decided that we could go with Frida Reba, so that she would still recognize the name that they were calling her, at her kennel, but at the same time, her new life, as as the artist, Frida, and she is very photogenic. She is uh, kind of kind of a ham. My old dogs weren't. They knew when they were on camera and would do the greatest thing until you pointed the camera at them, and then it's kind of like, yeah, no. It was amazing. It was uncanny how they could do that. Uh, but not Frida. She absolutely loves to be a part of the show, and she recognizes our intro music. And sometimes she's not feeling it, and if she's not, if she's not, it's no big thing. But a lot of times when she sees me setting up camera, it's dogs are watching, and when they see you getting out the suitcase, they're like, "Oh man," you know. They're then watching to see if you're grabbing their stuff too, right? Better be grabbing my stuff. If you're grabbing the suitcase, you better be grabbing my dish, my toys, my toys. If we're gonna hit the road. So yeah, she's like that. In that when she sees me setting up, she gets all excited, and then she kind of sees me grabbing the dog treats, and she's kind of eyeing. She's kind of doing her own little personal inventory of what she thinks she's getting paid per show, kind of a thing. So yeah, uh, Frida Reba, and then I didn't know where I got the Darcy. Um, uh, it just kind of rolled. It just kind of Frida Reba, and then the Darcy just had a roll to it. That's that's what I do know some Darcys, but yeah, Frida Reba Darcy, just because it just kind of had a. All right, this is where we're at so far, and I'm acting like I'm afraid of this part because I'm a little afraid of that part. It looks ominous in there to me. Yeah, yeah, Arrivederci. I think I also when it Arrivederci. I think Mario Andretti used to have that printed on the back of his race cars. Arrivederci. Uh, Born in Italy, raised in Nazareth, PA. He and his brother, and then their son, Michael. This sure does need this really bad. It's going to look a lot better, and these trunks are going to look a lot better. Ugh. What's not going to look better? My poor fingers, my poor nails, the way it goes. I kind of used to have my nails done a lot, and people will go, "Well, you probably stopped doing the worried about the nails when you got into hardware, right?" No, no, I more likely to tear stuff up with my nails than stuff tear my nails up. But by that token, I didn't want to scar up any trees or anything, so I kind of quit doing my nails a little while after I got into bonsai. Probably do a little better than what we're doing. These trees are going to have such cleaner bases whenever I get all of this mess cleaned out of here. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well it reads. But that little tree right there, I believe, was free and clear in the deal. That came out of the deal free somehow. Oh my goodness. Give up the skewers and go in here with a sickle or something. Brush hog. So yeah, that's how my dog that's how my little ragamuffin here got her name Frida Kahlo, because of Frida Kahlo Drive in San Francisco. And um, Frida and her husband had fairly uh, had a bit of an art history, I believe. I've seen some work of him doing paintings that were uh, well, he was paid to do some paintings in some of our San Francisco museums, and it was like the two of them with him slinging paint or something. So yeah, they had a reputation for palling around here, as well as being the pride of Mexico. She was really something too. You're really something. Did I tell you you're really something? Because you're really something. Very inquisitive. She is very inquisitive, and she's talented when it comes to digging. And the other weird thing about Frida is when she gets a chance, I said that wrong. I say it like when she gets a chance, like she never gets a chance. When she piles up in the bed, she goes directly under the covers. You go, aren't you going to suffocate underneath there? Underneath the covers, goes straight under. Yeah, that's you. So many weeds. Are you good back there? Yeah, right on cue. I'm just checking to make sure we're still producing sounds and stuff. We had been having, and I also, this is not going to be an incredibly fast video. We may start pressing some sort of boundaries as to the lifespan of uh, of these microphones. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better though. I hope my little tree is okay. So it's been about going on about 4 years now that I've had these guys going, and in that time, they've gone from all looking very identical to getting their own little structure and getting their own little hierarchy and getting their own different little solar density, and they're starting to become individuals, and some of them are starting to become fatter, and some of them are holding, So all of that stuff that I said would happen is actually happening. You can go to as little or as much trouble to a forest. You could you could select trees from really crooked trees, things that a commercial guys go, well, these are all my calls. These are all the ones that I can't mail order out. So you can go with all of those. And you'll see people, they'll have all of these trees. They're shaped this way and that way and this way. So they'll take one and turn it to where it's straight and then plant it. And then take the next one and it's hooked this way. So they'll turn it to where it's straight and then plant that. So that's one way. Another way is when you see a bunch of trees and they're all planted, and they're all got a different, they've all got some kind of hoop to them. Turn all those hoops in the same way. And it'll, like there are forests where you can see that they are hatched or popped as seed sprouts, grow and thrive uh, with a prevailing wind, to where uh, you don't see a lot of trees facing the other way. The whole forest does one of these. There are beach forests like that, uh, coastal forests like that. So that could be interesting too. But the people will tell you, or you can hear when people talk about forests, that ugly trees make great forests. All kind of trees make great forest if done well, if done conscientiously, if started wrong, but then you figure out what the heck you're doing. In other words, there's a lot of latitude to make a beautiful forest. uh, a bunch of little trees plus time and you can have a great forest. Literally take a pie tin and set some substrate in it and set it underneath your maple and then wait until everything else starts sprouting. And you'll probably end up finding quite a few little sprouts in your pie tin. And that could be congratulations. You've now got yourself a forest. When when I see people selling maples, sometimes you'll see that I haven't done this lately, but you would see people on Craigslist selling trees, selling pines, selling maples and stuff, and they'll sell maple seedlings by the block. Like they have a big maple and they just shoveled some substrate over a slab next to a maple, and then every year when that thing just comes up, just littered with, they cut out like with a brownie knife a slab of tiny little maples and sell them off in numbers like that. You look at them and you go, that doesn't really look like a commercial greenhouse maple. That looks like that, but they always have several hundred of them for sale. And those could just, and they are not regular. You can tell that they're not planted in holes, seeds planted in rows, right? They're irregular. So, accidental forest, accidental bonsai forest. Whenever you go, I've heard this said that whenever you go to a public display of bonsai trees, not necessarily like whenever you go to a big bonsai show where everybody who's got dressed up and bought tickets and everything is going to be a bonsai enthusiast. But say there is a bonsai exhibit at the mall. There's a bonsai, people still have malls. There's a bonsai exhibit uh, at a city park or at a gathering place or something is having a bonsai exhibit. where Joe Public meets meets Bonsai for the first time. Quite often, forests will get and hold the most attention. You know, there might be an exhibit where trees are quite old or quite beautiful or quite stately or have a history or they're everything you would want in a maple or a pine or some kind of juniper or something, and people will look at those and go, wow, while they're walking by. But there'll be a crowd. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. But there'll be a crowd and it'll be fairly constant around the forest. And people will be 1 and 2 deep gathered around the forest. Look at, they're the things that can garner the most attention. We're getting there. So, also, I'm starting to love this. I'm starting to. I don't know if you guys are seeing it yet, but I'm starting to feel less. I'm starting to feel less bad about the way this looks, and I'm starting to kind of like it again. It's amazing how that works. When you find your maybe, that probably means I need. I need to get in there and reestablish those things that are right about it. And when I do that, I'll also see what I love about it. Oh yeah, I always liked you. You're still here, and you're still here because you were always cool, and I liked you. It helps. Not mandatory, but it does help. We're getting there. The scary part's getting smaller and smaller. There's this little outcrop. This is where the gnomes or something would live, I suppose. Um, Things I've seen other people do that are really hard to manage. Multi-species forest. Multi-species forest. Those are hard to do. You see people who I got yeah, you see people who want to try that, and that is a really hard trick. Things grow at different rates, at different speeds, at different intervals. Um, yeah, it can be tricky, but there are some great ones out there. I think it would be interesting to see, like, how they say whenever you start maple seeds, if you get maple, you know what? You can't expect the maples. Excuse me. You can't expect the maple that that you get seeds from. You can't expect those seeds to necessarily look like their mom. They're not going to. Not only will they not necessarily, the odds are real good. If you want little plants from a certain tree that you see because you like the color of the leaves, then you need to clone that, and then you'll get that color leaves. Otherwise, you will not. Kind of like the same way that you can't plant the seeds in the apple that you ate and get an apple that tastes like that. It just doesn't work that way. If everybody's been working with the same clones for years and years when it comes to apples because they do some little trick to keep their varieties up. So yeah, they're tricky like that. That I guess keeps them hardy or something. Uh, Although that may also be working. It could seem like I could see where that could work against them. Uh, Everybody just keeps cloning the same five trees basically, and meanwhile, whole natural forests are not as big a deal. But there used to be a bunch of varieties of banana, and now there's like mainly just with the commercial market. There's like two or three species that the commercial market consumes, and aside from that, there's a bunch of them are gone. Kind of. Anyway, yeah, yeah, all a bunch of layers and grafts. Yeah, and you see that on maples too. Uh, when you go and you buy a maple, it's in a large bucket or something. They'll look. There's a scar there where they grafted something on a variety that's a little faster. You know, so yeah, and you have to watch that. Um, so you go and you buy a maple and it's got a trunk this big, but it's in a bucket this big, and you get it home and you start doing to reduce some roots, and then you do a trunk chop on that and cap the top off so that it doesn't just bleed to death, and then it puts out shoots underneath that. If you cut it below the graft scar because you didn't want that graft scar, then you're not going to get a tree anything like the one you chop down to make what it is you're about to grow next. So yeah, that's kind of something you have to watch out for on maples. And there's a lot of trees too. When you start looking, you have to ask people, is this a graft? Um, that can also have an effect on how you work that tree. Years later. Um, when you find shoots that are grafted on a tree, you have to be cognizant of that material may callus, but it will not heal over. So forever, you will have to worry or be considerate of not applying force against something that would reopen or break that graft. And that is the same with what do you call it, trunk chops. Whenever you put wedge cuts, that goes the same with wedge cuts on trees. Both sides of the cut will callus over, but it will not heal. So it's not like 10 years from now you can go back and put a wire on that and go pulling on a way that is not conducive to that old wound because it's still there. It's calloused over. It's stronger. It's tried to not tried. It's reinstalled some uh, new beef on either side of the wound, and it will have calloused over the cut itself, but it will not have it won't have formed a zipper over that. So that's what Ryan Neal tells me, that you have to watch those. Like what he says, his teacher was looking at they were about to do some pretty heavy bending on an older Japanese pine, and he saw his teacher, Mr. Kimura, looking at a branch, and they're like, what's up? He goes, that's a graft. That was grafted on there 30 years ago. If you bend that, you'll break it. And they're like, wow, 30 years ago. Yeah, you can still, yeah, don't bend that. You can't bend that. You have to, and also when people graft, they do graft in a lot of times when they're really on their game, they'll graft in such a way as to graft in a direction so that they should not have to go pulling that graft open. Uh, you know, there'll be enough meat from the original tree there that when you want to change your direction or something, you can wrap the base of your wire around that and start some of your move there. And then, in other words, a lot of times, uh, if your grafting person is experienced, they will have done their grafts in such a way to where it shouldn't interfere or be interfered with in future wiring. Um, all bets are off if the person who's wiring it and the person who's grafting it are two different people or are not of the same mindset. But when it's the same person, they will wire it knowing how they uh, want to apply wire to those and how they are intending to shape it when and if those grafts take. That's the level of game I hear about. That's not necessarily the level of game the level of game I'm at. Oh yeah. Yeah. When you can get in trouble, you can roses do like to be pruned though. They do below the ugly knots. Yeah. That's that's not the best. Oh goodness. I've also things that make bonsai that you wouldn't know make bonsai. Roses. Uh, ivy. Boom. That was another molar extraction right there. Yes. Get out of there. Get out of my tree, you weeds. So again, those were all places where my biogold was making the trees do real well, and it was also making the weeds do real well. They were really strong bed of weeds there. This is looking really a lot better though, I gotta say. Uh, my mud flat is looking quite a bit better than the weeds and moss, the weed filled moss I had going. Yeah, 19. I'm still not sure how I did that. One of these trees right in here gave birth to this one somehow, and that's our extra tree that we ended up with getting out of the game. Funny how that worked. Ugh. Get it all. So between between the wide root bases that they developed over that little accidental trick, and between how they're all individually thickening up and stuff based on pruning, and me trying to prune, trying to get different ones at different heights so that I could naturally have a top tree and not just a super super skinny one that was in the middle to be deliberately tall but otherwise didn't look proportionately right. That took a minute. to get our center tree up here on the top of the mound to also be our leader. It didn't look like a leader for a minute, and by leader I mean this one. Uh, I would say 2 years ago, for that to have been the tallest tree would have looked funny because it was definitely not proportioned like it should be above the others. Oh my goodness. It's kind of like raking, I'm just kind of going through here, raking the topsoil side to side until I expose the root balls to all this other stuff that doesn't belong in here. And these chopsticks, I use to point it in. I'm able to get all the moss off the trunks, and it doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be wrecking the bark on my maples. They've got a couple of years. I guess they're hard. I guess maple's hardwood. I don't know. I don't know. Can you see how that's how does how does that guy look? Can you see how that root base that I was talking about? Uh, that's not the one. That one. That's happy accident. Yep. I'm just gonna paint a happy little Nabari over here. I'm just gonna paint a happy little root base over here. But this is and it's I when I got done with this, I was just as thrilled with this as I could be. I felt like I had really done something. And you know what? All this time later, I wouldn't say any different. I've learned all kind of better ways to do to do forest. But I would also say the original things that I learned in my original couple of months of bonsai all held true. Forests are easy. You can go with some of your worst material. Bonsai growers will take their leftover trees and make bonsai forests. I believe all of those old sayings might very well be true. And also, there are some bonsai masters who have made some forests that were true works of art, true works of art. And let's see, last week I think I saw Steve's backyard bonsai. He has already this year done a dawn redwood forest and I believe a bald cypress forest. That's just new this year. Already done. Also, he's already done a few. He's already done a few restalls or gone through and done some pretty nice cleanup work on some impressive things that he's done in the last couple of years. I'm telling you, uh, challenge this guy. Give this guy a bonsai challenge at your own peril. Um, yeah. So yeah, Forest, run, Forest. Leave my old buddy Dan Cornwall was a lighting director on Forrest Gump. Was a gaffer. that would have been the movie and the era and the time when all the 20 and 30-year-old knuckleheads I knew when I was a 20 and 30-year-old getting into the film business. This would have been about the time that we all started getting into our 40s and 50s and started. Some of us started, finding ourselves in higher and higher, climbing up that ladder. In Dan's case, we went from electricians, and I think last time I saw he was shooting, or at least he should be by now. And by shooting, I mean camera operator. Uh, yeah, I'm fairly certain by now Dan's probably great guy. I enjoyed my time in the motion picture industry. It was very hard work, but I also felt like I could claim, or I felt like I had I had an artistic outlet. It also, in a way, was exhausting in the same way that football would have been exhausting if you were in your 30s or 40s and still playing football. It was absolutely exhausting. But it would keep you in good shape. It would either keep you in good shape or it would kill you. I always said the film business was about the same as dog years. It ages you in dog years. What was it? 4 to 1, 8 to 1, something in there. Film years and dog years were about the same thing, I believe. We are starting to see some signs of starting to see some signs of cleanness and greatness in this forest. I can say it's a great forest because all I did was lump a whole bunch of trees together. They're the ones actually doing this, and they're doing. I think they're doing a pretty good job. I see forest greatness in this. You bastard. Um, I'm just looking at all these little pink red tops that are the same color as the buds that are on the maples, except they're the buds of the weeds of the clover and of the other various and sundry weeds we have going now. After I've done most of the cleaning, I can still see some of these guys. So, see what how much more I can of this I can get up this way without hurting anything. E, e, e. All right. The hill at the top is almost clean. And smell the barn from here. Oh yeah. Uh, let's see. A lot of times it would take hours and hours and hours. Sometimes in the film business, we would show up at a location and start building the set weeks before the shot. Sometimes to be on the shooting crew wasn't where the money was. To be on the pre-rig crew was where the big money was. They were the big builders of big things. When you have some super huge colossal movie, the guys that are standing around next to the lights and that are standing around, I don't mean standing around, but the guys that are on the set on the day of, they're 10% of what it of they're the guys that showed up on that day and asked the guys who built the set where they got handed the keys and told how to drive the car basically. And then the people who spent like days building that, some of those guys will have been up for days, and they'll hang around for a little while and make sure that the handoff goes well. Um, so on some movies, to be the pre-rig, be part of the pre-rig crew, is to make all the money and to do all the real building and all the real work. And then on the day of, the lighting director and his merry crew come in and take their shirts off and stand next to the lights. Uh, Actually, every day, even those guys get beat up. Every day starts and ends with a 40-foot truck that has to be probably emptied. And before you're done, you're spread out like, as they say, before you're done, you're spread out like a fat lady's breakfast. So, and in the lighting business, which was the end that always stayed closest to, it was a theatrical rigger, but my basis was in lighting. So I always stay closest to where my bread and butter was. And that meant everything was copper, everything was a million degrees, everything was a million pounds, and it would burn you, it would electrocute you, it would give you something nasty if you let it. So it was, film business is dangerous uh, for everybody. Film business, doing makeup in the film business is more dangerous than doing makeup, for instance. It's just, anyway, it was also a lot of fun. It was also exhausting. It is also something you do instead of having a home life. So, if you have a good one of those, that's probably way better than a bunch of movie stories. Although I do have some pretty. Uh, yeah, maybe one night I'll tell you that Anthony Hopkins. That's awesome. Um, I have some stories. The movie where a leading lady really didn't like, really didn't care for the leading man, and there was a scene in there that was going to call for nudity and stuff. And as professional actors, they didn't have a problem with that as much as they were afraid that they're not liking one another would make it difficult to be believable. To apparently they didn't like one another big time. Uh, a crew member's name was mentioned. This is a 20-year-old movie story. A crew member's name was mentioned, and the guy goes, "Leave my name out of this. I've you know just married, just married. Leave my name out of this. Oh, and yeah, I remember at the time I was uh, I was thinking that was just crazy. But I think the movie was called Blue Sky. Now everybody's going to go back and wonder who it was in Blue Sky that didn't want to sleep with their counterpart and instead wanted to sleep with the dolly grip. And the dolly grip's like, yeah, no, thank you. Um, and it wasn't like, do you want to just have do you want to just have this scene with a woman and nobody will ever know, and it was a big check. It came with a SAG card and and a big check to do the scene with a famous Hollywood actress. Yeah, no. I think I was just about uh, to be done with my first marriage, and my wife at the time was like, "Yeah, don't ever turn down 5 grand like that. Just bring that money on, bring that money right on home." Uh, yeah, that probably was a good indication of where that marriage was going to. But like I said, to be in the film business, I knew a few people. I know quite a few people who have had really long and happy and loving relationships, and I've also known some people who didn't feel like they could leave the set to go to their kids' graduation. So some of all of it. Uh, what do you think? I still see a little bit more I'm going to be working with, but this is a 19 tree Kodaheim maple forest, completely done by a green as grass rookie, and it in a it is in a glazed green Tokonoma Japanese pot, pretty color pot. I also intend to clean it. I won't clean it on your time. I won't clean it on your time. I will include a picture of the cleaned pot in the maybe I'll do a thumb for this, or we'll just see it on the next one. All right. I think that suffered through enough. What do we think here? Is that, let me see if I can bring this come over here. Why didn't you do that earlier? No, we're okay. You do that. All right. That is coming around. That's pretty much, I don't think I have anything left in there hardly to pull. I do see a couple of little small flakes of green, mostly things that have already been pulled up. But that is 19 Kodaheim maple trees in a in my little forest. This was probably my first couple of months into doing bonsai, and I would say that I watched videos for 2 days, ordered some trees, pretty much phoned this in, and and one while I would say it looks like that, I would also say that the longer it goes, the better it looks. And my little trees and my little wide bases are starting to get kind of a wicked look. With every repotting, I suspect this guy will get a little better looking. I also suspect I need to do a little better job of keeping the moss down around the base of these trees, or I will lose some of that, or I will lose some of that stuff that I like that we've got going on. But that's that's kind of goddess. That's, yeah, I think you can see the light and the space in those trees. I could go back maybe over with a little dressing on this tomorrow. I'll get it back on the stand, so that whenever I go through and shake through a little bit of top dressing on here, it won't go all over my living room floor. Take it back out on the balcony for that. I might, yeah, we'll probably do that. All right. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Everybody here tonight, I know, is already liked and subscribed and stuff. I appreciate all you guys. Frida appreciates all you guys, and thank you so much for watching. I'll do another turnaround. I'll do another look at this. Did I haven't figured out yet how to play any of our background music. There's just too many things going through. My background music would be through this laptop, which is also where all these cables are running through. Which every time I look off camera and look at something, I'm looking at the laptop. But anyway, that's, oh, you can see a lot of new growth on these guys. They're just starting to pop out a little bit. And that's our look, and that's our cleanup. Thank you so much for watching.